Hook, have you ever been pushed so far, so disrespected, that you did something everyone told you was impossible? Something that made people's jaws drop in disbelief. Well, that's exactly what happened to me when my homeowners association tore down the barn my grandfather built with his bare hands. And what I did in return, well, let's just say one twist of a valve changed everything. This is not just a story of revenge. It's a story of family, pride, and learning that sometimes you have to stand up to bullies no matter how powerful they seem. Stick with me until the end, because what I'm about to share will leave you asking yourself, what would I have done in his shoes? I grew up in a quiet little town where the seasons painted the hills in gold, red, and green. My grandfather, a man who never raised his voice, but whose presence filled a room, built a barn on our property when he returned from serving overseas. It wasn't just a barn. It was where I learned to ride my first horse, where my dad taught me how to fix an engine, where our family hosted Christmas dinners when the house felt too small. That barn wasn't just wood and nails. It was our legacy. When my parents passed, I inherited the land, and though times were tough, I promised myself I'd keep it all standing, exactly as my grandfather had left it. I had no idea that promise was about to be shattered by people who only saw property lines and profit margins. The trouble began when the HOA expanded its reach. Originally, they only managed the gated resort community across the hill, million-dollar homes with pools, tennis courts, and a private lake that shimmered like glass. But greed doesn't stop at gates. Slowly, they started encroaching on old family properties nearby, waving papers, demanding compliance, threatening fines. At first, I ignored them. After all, I wasn't part of their resort. My land was mine. But then came the letters, complaints about the yezor of my red barn. Non-compliant structure, they called it. Unsafe, they claimed. I fought. I wrote back. I showed them deeds older than their entire HOA charter. But they didn't care. One morning, I woke to the sound of engines. I ran outside to find bulldozers parked at the edge of my land. Men in neon vests stood waiting, clipboards in hand. And then I saw the president of the OA, slick suit, expensive sunglasses, smirk plastered across his face, pointing at my barn like it was trash to be taken out. I screamed. I begged. I stood in front of those machines, shaking with rage. But the deputies they brought along told me to step aside. You'll be arrested if you interfere. And just like that, I had to stand there helplessly as they tore down the barn beam by beam, splinter by splinter. Dust filled the air, and I swear I could hear my grandfather's voice in the creak of the wood as it collapsed. I'd never felt pain like that before. It wasn't just a building they destroyed. It was every memory, every promise, every piece of my family's history. That night, I sat alone on the rubble, fists clenched, tears burning my eyes. I wasn't just grieving. I was furious. Furious at their arrogance. Furious at their power. Furious that they thought they could destroy what was mine and walk away laughing. And that's when I remembered something my grandfather once told me when I was a boy. Son, never pick a fight. But if someone takes what's yours, make sure they regret it. And regret, oh, they would. The HOA's crown jewel was their $5 million resort lake. Picture perfect, stocked with fish, ringed by luxury homes, and rented out for weddings, parties, and corporate retreats. The entire community revolved around it. Without that lake, their paradise would turn into nothing more than overpriced dirt. And here's the thing about lakes like that. They're man-made, and man-made lakes have drains. My grandfather had helped design irrigation systems in this valley decades ago. He taught me about the water lines that crisscrossed beneath our hills, about the old maintenance valves, hidden in plain sight, if you knew where to look. And wouldn't you know it? The main release valve for that resort lake sat on a piece of land the HOA had overlooked when drawing their maps. Land that was still mine. For weeks after losing my barn, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw bulldozers crushing my family's history. I saw the HOA president's smug grin, until one night, under the moonlight, I walked to that old valve. Rusty, hidden behind weeds, but still intact. I rested my hand on the wheel and whispered, "This one's for you, Grandpa." With one long, steady twist, the metal groaned and the earth trembled. At first, nothing. Then, a roar, like thunder underground. Water surged, pouring through channels not used in decades. By morning, the lake had dropped 3 feet. By evening, Doc sat on dry land. Within 2 days, the entire crown jewel was nothing but a muddy crater littered with stranded fish and sunken boats. The resort? Shut down. The homeowners? Screaming in panic. And the HOA? Oh, they scrambled like ants on a hot skillet. The president himself stormed onto my property, demanding answers, his face redder than a tomato. And you know what I did? I sat on the remains of my barn, calm as could be, and said, "Wes, you should have read the deeds more carefully. That valve is on my land. You destroy my family's legacy. I return the favor." He threatened lawsuits. He called the sheriff, but when the dust settled, there was nothing they could do. Their multi-million-dollar lake was gone, and I had broken no law. For months, their empire crumbled. Home values plummeted. Lawsuits flew, not against me, but against the HOA board. And that smug president, he disappeared, tail tucked between his legs. Me, I rebuilt my barn. Not as big as the original, but sturdy, proud, and filled with the same spirit my grandfather left me. Neighbors I'd never spoken to before came by to shake my hand, thanking me for standing up to the tyrants. Some even said draining that lake gave the whole town its soul back. And here's the lesson I carry with me: bullies may have power, but they don't have roots. They don't have history. And when you stand up for what truly matters, family, heritage, love, they can't take that away from you. So when you're faced with someone who thinks they're bigger than you, remember this: sometimes all it takes is one twist of the valve. Final message: don't ever let anyone convince you that you're powerless. Legacy is stronger than money. Roots run deeper than greed. And sometimes, justice doesn't come from a courtroom. It comes from the courage to act.